Hey, Eric, what's going on?
Hey, Howie, the Fitness Guerrillas are back in town.
We're here. We got a great guest. Who is it, Eric?
Uh, this guy he's one of the most powerful guys in the fitness industry. He's a dear friend of mine, partner of mine. We've done crunches together, UFCs together, and I still like him. What's more important, he still likes me. Very shocking after all this time.
That's not what he told me. Anyway.
Let me give you a little bit of background on who he is and what he's done. He was the president of Bally's and the president of 24 Hour for 22 years collectively. I'm going to ask him about the Bally's thing. He's the president of Harman Fitness. He's the number one franchisee of Crunch. I think he has 32 locations. Can you imagine having 32 crunches? He's still halfway sane. He's a great family man. Rob and his wife, beautiful kids. His son's a superstar football player like him and his father. And Curtis is the type of person, he tells it like it is, just like the Fitness Guerrillas. He doesn't mince words. He's going to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly of whatever your question is. Hopefully we'll have a lot of questions for him. If not, we'll make up our own. But I'm really happy to have him on the show. Another heavyweight legend, Mr. Curtis Harman. Let's welcome Curtis.
Hey, Eric. Good to see you.
Hey, Curtis.
Hi, Curtis.
Hey, Howie.
All right. Curtis, all the questions that we rehearsed, throw those away because we're not using those.
I wish we had to rehearse some of them.
You know what I was thinking, Curtis? Looking through your bio, how many years were you the president of Bally's?
I was a divisional president there for 3 years. I left after 24 Hour Fitness let a lot of us go. I went over there, followed Mike Sheehan, who was our COO, and went over there to be the CEO.
How was that? I mean, was Bally's in trouble at the time or not yet?
Bally's was beyond in trouble at the time. Yeah. They had just come through a restructuring bankruptcy that didn't go very well. And really, my job was to bring in some folks and help increase profits and then either raise capital or eventually do what they did and sell off, the stores.
How was that feeling when you're such a high up in the company? You knew more than they were probably even telling you, right? You've been around the block a few times. How could you project positivity when in the back of your mind you knew, like, your last helicopter out?
Doom.
I mean, it was a tough one. It was kind of a strange couple years there. Bally's was so far behind. The competition was LA Fitness and 24 Hour Fitness, and leaving 24 Hour Fitness, kind of at its prime, and going there was very, very difficult. The biggest obstacle they had, because they did have some good people there, was just there was no money, and the company was not set up on EFT. Everybody was paying manually at the club or mailing in payments. So I think Mike Sheehan did a good job and took a lot of things from 24, but the company was so run down as far as the facilities and had so little money that there was really no saving it. And obviously that's what happened. All of them were sold off to 24 Hour Fitness, LA Fitness, Blast, and Retro, and some other companies.
But when you were, you had so many people. I mean, how many staff were there at the time?
At Bally's, we had probably somewhere over 10,000 employees, and a lot of people in collections. I've never seen so many people in collections in my life. We had a giant office in Norwalk here on the West Coast, and another one in Chicago. And because they were on statement billing, where people were mailing in their payments, we had over 90 collections people on a large floor. So it was a lot of folks that but most of those people, or a lot of them, not so much in the corporate office, but in the clubs, had a kind of a safe or happy landing because they were rehired in the clubs that they worked in or the markets that they worked in. So, for instance, like most of the district managers that I had in Los Angeles stayed with LA Fitness when LA Fitness bought them out. So, the fitness industry is kind of interesting. As you know, we all end up working at a couple different places and rotate the produce a little bit.
How did you handle the stress? I mean, we all have stress. You have stress. You've got 32 locations, right?
Well, we have 43 Crunch locations.
Oh my God!
4 UFCs, and then we have 15 CR7s, and then 2 high-end clubs. We have 60, 60 some clubs. The stress at Bally's wasn't like it is today because it wasn't my own money, and it wasn't as stressful as like working for Mark, who I consider a mentor and great friend, where it was his company. I did the best job that I could, but I knew that I was going to have to find something else, and that's kind of how I made my transition to Crunch. Had a conversation with Mark, and he brought myself, Steve Kleinfelter, Mark Pauly, John Romeo, and Steve Block in from 24 Hour Fitness. We all became JV partners with Angelo and Gordon and Crunch. So it was was better that I'm here than there.
Wow, 63 locations, unbelievable. Howie, ask Curtis something.
Yeah, we have a lot of people. The Fitness Guerrillas, our angle is to try and help other club owners, maybe not guys with your experience, but maybe starting out or anywhere along the chain. So given what's going on right now, I want to ask you a few questions about the actual operations, if you don't mind. How's the attitude and the spirit in the clubs now? I mean, realize they're not open, most of them, but how's the staff? What do you feel? What do you feel in the energy?
I think it's kind of a state by state thing. Where we opened up in Idaho a couple days ago, and the staff is very pumped up and excited to be working again. A lot of them have, we've kind of maintained as much contact as we could without, keeping them on payroll, but they've come back. They're hungry. Idaho is actually doing fairly well right now. They've picked up right where they left off. California, I think we're going to run into a little bit more difficulty. I think as we bring people back, that unemployment is paying so much that a lot of folks are going to want to stay on unemployment versus come back to work, which is a little bit sad. And I think really for the clubs, it's just going to depend on how strict the guidelines are. The guidelines in every state, and even in every state and every county, are proving to be a little bit difficult. So we're looking at possibly opening in Colorado. The only issue as it stands right now, we're being told that we can only allow 10 people in the club at one time.
Oh, God.
That doesn't matter if we're a 2,000 square foot club or a 60,000 square foot club. So hopefully they get that straightened out, and we can, most of our equipment is 6 feet apart. If you go from seat to seat, we can turn off every other piece of cardio equipment. In our larger clubs, if they have a basketball court or a larger area, we can put cardio in there. So I think, I think it's going to be positive on reopening. I think there is, going to be a lot of people that freeze their accounts longer and wait and see. But it's really too early for me to say about the staff. I mean, like I said, the folks in Idaho that are in the clubs right now and been working the past couple of days are pumped up and excited to be back to work.
So let me ask you another question. Well, follow-on question to that. I mean, the locations that you do have that are open, how are you reaching out to the members during the close down, or if you're still closed down? And how did you reach out to them in Colorado and in Idaho, where you're open again, to give them confidence that everything's going to be okay? That's something, that seems to be very important in everything we've been listening to. But a second part is, we've heard all kinds of stories from Asia where there's 85% of the people coming back and working out. And one of Eric's friends has quite a large chain, and he's only having, in the areas where he is open, maybe 10 to 15% of the members coming back. So Idaho sounds like a good location in America.
We're talking about Georgia.
Yeah. So, yeah, how are you reaching out to your members to convince them that it's going to be, cool to come back and safe? And have you done anything wild?
Yeah, we're communicating to our members by text and by email. Obviously, we're communicating on social media as best we can. I will have to say that Crunch did take, I think, best practices from everybody. It's a little long. It's a little long of a read. It's about 1,600.
Yeah, we all saw it.
But and I'm sure if you talked to Craig last week, you've got it. But it's a great manual, and it's a great A through Z how to get your club reopened. We just have to be careful, with local laws which change from different state to state, city to city.
How have the members reacted to the shutdown themselves? I mean, what percentage of them? I don't know what you offered them, so and maybe it was different in every location, but in every state. But how many of them stayed on? How many of them froze? How many of them canceled? How many kept paying, for that matter?
Well, we stopped our billing right away. So, so we stopped. Actually, we billed for 2 weeks through the end of the monthly cycle. And then we're giving our members either 150% of what they paid for that they didn't receive in store credit, meaning they spend it on personal training, upgrading, supplements, drinks, or we'll just extend them the time that they have coming to them. So that way, nobody is billed for any time that they weren't able to use. So I think that was. I think it was really, really smart. I saw some other companies that continued billing and had terrible social media. And then it's, you have some companies that are now filing Chapter 11 and are going bankrupt that billed. That's not right either. So I think for the member, the best thing is to be fair. And I think we did that because they'll either get 150% credit or they'll get exactly the time that they, club was closed.
Yeah, no, that's very good. I mean, we heard Craig talking about that also.
Yeah, no, that was set up properly. Members in Idaho, they seem fine.
Promotion.
Nobody's wearing masks. No, we'll see what it's like in California.
Well, I'm sure it won't be exactly the same, but
no, it won't.
Really.
Curtis, are you doing, besides the 150% from Crunch Corporate, are you doing any special promotions for members, member buddy referrals, PT, whatever? Are you pulling a rabbit out of your hat?
Well, I think what we're trying to do is kind of make a transition, from our small group training to our individual training. I don't know how small group training is going to do in the future when you're going from station to station and there's not somebody there sanitizing the ropes before you get there, or the sled, or whatever you might be doing. So we're really trying to get all our members, when they come back, to get a refresher, to go through a first workout again, even if they've had a first workout, reset goals, reestablish, their workout frequency. Hopefully we can get our personal training, back up and running, because that's what's going to take some time. I mean, if the members come back and they're paying, we can get back to that fairly soon, hopefully, and being normal or close to normal. But the personal training is something that kind of builds up over time. So, and then group exercise, that's going to be kind of a slow launch. We're not going to have a full schedule at first. We're not, we're going to see, depending on what club it is and what city it's in, how close we can get people together. And then the wet areas, most places have mandated that they stay closed, although to me, that probably makes the least sense of all. The virus supposedly doesn't survive in water, and I know it's not going to survive in chlorine. So I'm not sure why the pools aren't allowed to be open yet, or we're looking at them not being allowed to be open yet. But I think those will open up fairly quickly as well. And most of our clubs don't have swimming pools anyhow, so it's only a small number.
Right. The idea of having only 10 people per location allowed in at any given time, I mean, how do you fight that? If you, like you said,
we won't open like that. I think we would get more cancels than we would have people happy. If people come to the club and we're letting 10 in at a time, or 10 in for an hour, I think we'd lose more people. And if we just said, hey, we're not opening until we can actually, service you, because it wouldn't be fair to bill them.
Where is that? Where is that happening?
Denver.
In Denver. I was reading in the newspaper this morning. I was reading in the news. No such thing as newspaper anymore. On the news about this gym in New Jersey, which is a hot spot, just refusing to stay closed. And they said, we're open. No matter what it takes, they're opening. How do you think that's going to progress throughout the country?
I hope it does. There's a gym here in Victorville that opened up. They haven't been fined. They haven't been shut down. They haven't arrested anybody. If you arrest somebody in California now, it really doesn't matter. There's a no bail thing going on. There's a guy here in one of the cities that we operate in that was arrested 3 times in one day. So busy day for him. I talked to Crunch about trying to open up a couple clubs that we manage for a franchisee who just basically came to me and said, I'm going to go bankrupt. We need to open up. And they're not allowing us to do that. So it could default our franchise rights. So I'm going to wait until we get the go ahead. I am going to push them to get open. I believe that, most of our members are 18 to 35. That's the group that's not affected. I think healthy people are going to be less likely to get it. Being overweight or obese is actually one of the major concerns that they have when you do get it. Being old, having other complication, or being overweight. So, saying a health club is not an essential necessity, I'm not sure how that is. Right. I understand the spacing. I understand the sanitization and everything that we can do to make it better. But like I said, it really looks like it's up to states. It's the politics of the state that's dictating, what's going on.
Right. And Curtis, you own other clubs that are not part of the franchise. I'm a member of one of them, Fabulous.
Yeah.
Athletic Society right here where I live. And they're gorgeous, they're beautiful, very high end. Are you thinking about opening those faster, or how do you feel about those
I
beautiful
think the
teams?
high-end clubs have a little bit of risk because of the age difference. You know, the HVLP or our Crunch clubs are 18 to 35. Our Athletic Society clubs are 50 to 75. And we have seen a large difference between the Crunch clubs and those on cancellation and freezes. So I had a lot more percentage of folks cancel, and I had a lot of people freeze, and a lot of people at those high-end clubs have wanted to freeze longer than the date that we're going to be open. So I do think that group of folks, you know, they have the money to buy the home equipment or pay for the subscriptions. I think that group of people probably will take longer coming back to the club, and probably rightfully so. You know, if you're 70 years old and you've, you know, had cancer or have had some complications, or whether it be diabetes or whatever it may be, coming back to the club as soon as, you know, a 25-year-old kid with some perfect health is probably a lot different. So I do think that we're going to have a tougher time in those clubs. And
Are you going to up the price?
I don't. That's a tough one. We're such a small community, and you know the referral business. You know, so we're still trying to figure that one out. We really won't know how bad. I think anybody that doesn't really know how they're going to do is lying or guessing. We're not going to know how bad it's going to be as far as member dropout and attrition until we bill the first couple months of billing. And then you might have people say, hey, I'm not going to use the club. I don't feel comfortable. I'm going to cancel. And all those people might have been on freeze, or obviously our billing was stopped. So I don't think we're going to know for a couple months until after we're open on how many people will stick. And then it will be interesting to see, you know, what the buying habits are. And do we get back to, you know, our normal enrollment numbers or not?
Yeah,
I was thinking about
that in the midterm, it's all going to depend on whether people are infected, have been to the health club, and the media and social media reports on, oh, you know, California let people into the gyms and they're all getting sick, like they're talking about Texas right now. I read about it today. That's going to be the big determinator, especially with your higher end clubs. People that actually care about the news and care if they're going to get sick are going to be much more tuned into whether there is a flare up. And that
it depends whether you're watching Fox or CNN. Unfortunately, California's listening to somebody else. But
if I were you, Curtis, you know, as a member of your great club, I go there every day when it's open. I would think about raising the price, raising the dues, adding in a few value adds, and telling everybody, hey, we are now down by 30-40% usage, and that's the way it is. And this is a, you know, $10 million location. It's your club. We're going to add value, and we're going to charge you more. End of story.
Yeah, we've thought about, you know, Bay Club did something where they let members donate a month or 2 months or 3 months of dues. We've thought about that, not with Crunch, but with the high end. I guess I could start by charging you, though.
Get him to pay. Make him pay.
Oh, no. Me and my big mouth. All right. Well,
don't tell me he's free. He's a free member.
He's a freebie, yeah.
Oh, Christ.
That's why I keep on.
Lesson number one: no freebie.
So Eric talks himself into a lot of stuff.
3 weeks free. You know, Curtis, I want to ask you a question. You obviously, and you've proven it many times with the Athletic Society and others, so you could operate your own chain of clubs in your sleep. Why franchise?
Well, I mean, part of it was, you know, being with Mark so long. You know, he came to me and the other guys, and we got into a JV partnership with Angelo Gordon. That really didn't work out well for us, not so much because of the franchise, but because Angelo Gordon had much better attorneys than us and preferred returns and things like that. So we were more of an employee than a partner. There was 5 of us, and all but one of us went off and sold our franchises back and opened up our own franchises. And I get asked that question a lot. You know, if you had to do it again, would you be a Crunch franchisee? Or would you go do it on your own? And you know, I also see the franchisor side of things because I'm in the CR7, which is Ronaldo's Crunch gyms in Europe, and we're the master franchisor there. So I kind of see the franchisor and the franchisee from both sides. The one thing that would have never happened to me, though, is if I'd gone out on my own, there's no way that I would have ever had the relationships and the investors and pro basketball players putting money in and deals with pro basketball players to do cities like Joakim Noah in Chicago. We're looking at a James Harden deal in Houston, Chris Paul in LA. I wouldn't have had those opportunities had it just been, my fitness club. So yes, there are some things that you have to deal with this from a franchisee perspective, like royalties and marketing fees and rules and preferred vendors, and I probably drive them crazier than anybody else, I'm sure. But
I've heard that, Curtis.
yeah, I know.
We all heard it. We all heard it. All the fitness gorillas heard it.
Well, I mean, you got Ben Manley that was at 24 Hour Fitness with us, good friend, does great work. And that's a lot of the 24-hour people. And you have Jim Rowley and Mark Mastroff, who are, helping run the company. Jim Rowley's the CEO, and he's a great buddy and, peer, and we were together forever at 24 Hour Fitness. So, the franchise fees and some of the stuff is, it can be frustrating at times, but I got to say overall, it's been worth it to me. And I wouldn't have 50 clubs right now. If I hadn't done it, I'd have, 5. So there's been some opportunities along with it.
You touched on one of my questions I was going to ask you. You do have a ton of celebrities as investors and partners with you. How did that happen? How would someone go about and do that? I see the value, and you seem to be doing it very well at that.
Well, that's where Crunch helped me out. So, that's where Ben came to me and had a BDA Sport with Bill Duffy, who's also friends with Mark Mastro. And they wanted some of their players to invest their money. A lot of their money is being held with a company called True Capital. And True Capital and BDA Sports are my partners in Spain with CR7. So the way that relationship sort of blossomed was they introduced me. They had some players that wanted to put money in. Crunch Corporate was helping funnel some of that money through me. They made good returns in LA, and so it got bigger. Then they had Joakim Noah say, "Hey, I want to do 10 clubs in Chicago," and we almost did a deal with Kawhi Leonard in San Antonio. So not all of them worked out. Not all of them have been great relationships, but the Crunch folks got me in front of the right people, along with Mark, and it worked out pretty good. That's what I'm saying. I wouldn't, if I was with me, I wouldn't have met a lot of those people. I mean, Mark might have sent them my way or here or there, but it was really that most of them wanted to invest in a brand. So if you look at the stuff they invest in, it's pizza places, or it's franchising mainly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's a couple of other questions I have around that. One, we don't know, as you said, what's going to happen completely in the fitness industry. I'm very bullish on it, but there's a lot of people that were in difficulties prior to this, and now it's pushing them over the top.
That's my question.
You seem to have your ear on the ground. You hear everything. You know everything. You know more about me than I know. How do you source what you're sourcing? I know that you're going to come to me in a week or two. We always chit chat. You're going to tell me about 100 new possibilities that are coming your way. How do you get that information, and how do you decipher what you're going to do? There's going to be so many opportunities coming your way.
I get a lot of information probably because I'm getting old. 30 years of doing this and working for a couple different companies, and I've managed to keep pretty good relationships with most folks. So that, and I reach out a lot. I don't think any conversation is necessarily a bad one. I'm trying to go out there and find out who's closing so I can absorb dues, taps, or maybe look at some acquisitions. I have people that, all over. Hey, if you hear anything, let me know. I'll take a look at it. So I think, the fitness industry was going in a bad direction, to be honest with you. I think it was really saturated. If you look at studies and things like that, people that belonged to a gym 10 years ago was about 15% of the population. Now it's 22%. But places to work out have increased 300 or 400%. So I think with boutique and HVLP, and then all the 24-hour fitnesses and LA fitnesses that have opened up, and all the Chews and Retros and Bosses and all this new competition, I think the fitness industry was really becoming a commodity. Price was dropping. It's a lot cheaper now to be a member than it's ever been. Expenses are going up because payroll's going up, rents are going up. So I think it was, people were getting in trouble before this happened. I think this is going to reset the stage. The weaker clubs and organizations aren't going to make it, And then I don't think anybody's going to go open up a brand new club and do a brand new lease and build a new 1.5 or $2 million club. I think they're going to find something nearby that close. So I think you'll see the fitness industry kind of consolidate a little bit. And it's just it's the better operators or the better finance companies that are going to be able to take advantage of it. So I think you can either come out of this not at all, or you can come out of it better. And I think it's just a matter of trying to get rid of bad locations, keep your good locations. And I think you'll see a lot of people do their pre-packed Chapter 11s and dump bad locations and keep the good ones and so on. The only thing that could hurt us is if somebody comes in and opens up where somebody went out of business that helped you, because I have clubs that are just barely breaking even or making just a little bit of money that used to do very, very well. Then a Fitness 19's moved in, an LA Fitness, a new 24, and then a Planet. And all of a sudden now you have 4 or 5 competitors in a market that can only really support 2. So I think in some ways, this could help out. I know it sounds crazy, but I think we could.
It's exactly true. It's exactly true.
How are you handling your landlords, Curtis?
I was just gonna.
What are you doing to?
Well, I am to Hollywood. I hired Ray Donovan.
Good.
I tried talking to them myself sanely, and some were very, very good. Some were okay, and then some were just horrible. And so I had to stop doing that, and I hired somebody else that's more experienced at doing restructures and things like that, because we got to the point where I was, they were threatening me, and then I threatened them, and their way was legal, my way wasn't. So we'll leave it at that. I might need to meet some of those Russian guys, Eric.
Hey, Curtis, what's your feeling on how many people, what percentage of the clubs that were in trouble, or never mind, they may not have been in trouble? How much of a restructuring? How much of a how many clubs are in trouble? Do you think percentage-wise? 20%, 15%?
Yeah, different organizations are different.
Right.
For me, probably about 15%. And I really, I don't know how Planet and Crunch will continue to grow, especially Planet. Crunch has lots of areas they can go, but I don't think the HVLP model works in smaller towns. You just don't have enough people to get to 10,000 members. And so, I think, some of my mistakes were going to some smaller towns or markets, whether it be outside of Chicago or, wherever it might be. But I think, you got to stick with the big cities with HVLP or change the price. And I think if there's a consolidation of the industry, we got to increase price. We can't keep selling it at 10 and 20 bucks when, rents will come down. So that will help. But, payroll for me, and, I've been 9 years now in LA. Our minimum wage has gone from 8 something up all the way to 15 bucks an hour. So payroll has doubled. Our membership fees on average have gone up $3 to $4. So it just isn't it isn't keeping pace with the, I guess you'd say inflation.
Yeah, it's a squeeze. That's
Well, what are you asking the landlords to do for you, Curtis?
We're asking for rent abatement while we're closed. And then we're asking for discounted rent moving forward. The guys that are pretty sharp and that understand this realize that a lot of time landlords are like 60-40. 60% of your rent goes to their mortgage and 40 is their profit. So I think a lot of them are looking at it going, hey, if you go bankrupt and you can reject my lease, I'm not going to have anything. And then for me to backfill you, retail was already going, away with Amazon and everything being on the internet. I think landlords are starting to realize, hey, it's better for me to just get what I need to pay my mortgage for a period of time, and then hopefully things spring back. So some things that I've done with some of my landlords that has been pretty beneficial is, hey, look, I need 50% rent or abatement for a time being, and then my rent will escalate up as my member count grows. And so that seems to me like the fairest thing. Like if my members don't come back, I can't get put into high rent situation again. If they come back really fast, which we hope to, then my rent can go up because we can afford it. So we've kind of, with some landlords, worked out a sliding scale of members to rent, if that makes sense.
Right. No, that's a good point.
a good idea. Good point.
Howie, you have a question there?
Well, Mike, we've already asked all the questions.
You took a question, I think, Eric.
You jumped me with the questions. But no, on the same vein, would you be willing to shut some clubs to pump up your bottom line? Would it even consider that?
Yeah, I mean, we have. We're closing down our last 3 UFC sites, and we've bought out of leases in those. It's kind of like a bad stock. At some point, you've made a mistake, and you got to get rid of it. So we spent we spent a year of rent to get out of one site that was losing double that per year. So to me that was a good ad. I was a little concerned too with my UFC club too, because it's one thing to how you have social distancing when you're doing MMA or boxing. I'm not really sure how that works out.
No, same thing with personal training. It's a little hard to spot somebody from 6 feet away.
True.
Teabagging going on there.
Yeah. Well, small group training, we're going to wait to bring back. Personal training, we're going to try to keep them as far or as close as we can get away with, and go from there and see how it works out.
Yeah, maybe change the name from personal training to distance training. I don't know.
Hygienic training.
Yeah.
Right. But Curtis, another question I have. You've made some fabulous real estate plays since you've been in the fitness industry, and I know that they've been very successful, and you'd love to do as many as you could. Can you explain it? And any of the listeners out there, all 3 of them, maybe one of them could jump on that.
Yeah.
I can't say it's not my idea. LA Fitness is famous for doing it, buying their property and doing sale leasebacks with REITs. There's a company in Central California that's pretty much been built up that way. So if we can buy a property before we go into a lease and kind of set the stage for what that property could be worth with us in there, we'll try to buy it first, and then we typically have a REIT, set up to buy it after we do, so we're not staying in it very long, and then the building becomes, with a decent tenant, and the larger that we've grown, the building becomes more and more valuable with that tenant's, guarantee or signature. So, when we first started doing it, we weren't making as much on the buildings. Cap rates weren't as good. Now that we're getting larger and larger, that we can make a decent amount on the real estate. And now we're even looking at possibly, buying and holding on to it for a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it's also a way to get a lot of TI money. So what I was doing before I started buying the building, I was actually going to developers, and they were coming to me, and I was saying, hey, if you build this club, give me this amount of money, pay for my equipment or pay for my build out 100%, I'll pay you a little higher rent. So you can play that rent for cash or TI or build out or equipment or whatever it may be. But it's definitely a better way to get into a club.
Right. And that's worked well, very well.
We actually have a question from somebody. Possibly we'll see it up here at the bottom if Anika could do it. What state are you with your UFC clubs in, Curtis, whatever that means?
California. So we're in San Dimas, Santa Clarita, and Northridge.
All right.
Curtis wrote that question himself.
No, I didn't write it.
No, I said Curtis did.
I got proof. We got proof. All right. So that was a quick answer.
There it is. There it is. So, Curtis, you've been around forever. You're very super experienced. What honest, deep piece of advice can you give somebody out there that they're really not sure, but they need some real street advice from you? What would you say to them? What would you want to say to them?
I mean, some of the mistakes that I've made are, one, wanting to grow too fast. Maybe doing some deals I shouldn't have done because I ran so many clubs at 24 and Bally's that I felt I had to grow to a certain size. So, and then me and you have talked about it, not doing anything that you didn't think was going to be a home run. Don't settle for any singles or doubles, go for the triples and home runs. And then I would say make sure that, you spend money and don't cheap out in certain areas to save a couple bucks. In the beginning, I did not do a good job in hiring the right real estate attorney. And then when things like this happen and other things, you get kind of stuck in a bad spot. So, when you're looking at sites, make sure that your lease reads really well for you if things don't go right. Obviously, investigate and make sure you're taking over a good site. You're not just growing for the sake of growing. And then just work hard. It's along with the right marketing, but hustle, hard work, and having the right people. We've only grown because we've had the right people, and I think our general managers many of them are owner operators that we've given equity to based on performance. So that's really driven them to do well. In fact, Eric, Johnny Chow, that, it was our club that, we put him in. He became one of the top managers of my organization's the district manager now. And so we have a few of those folks that are working really hard. They're working like an owner, not a manager. And, I think, just putting the right people in place as soon as you get to a certain size. You can only do it all on your own. Personal heroics only can get you so far. And then as you have too many spots, too many stores, you can't be there. So you got to find other people that can do the job for you and the way you want it done.
And, I have a question for you, and you're probably the right guy to answer this because you're very detailed also. Legal issues. At this point, they were trying to get the Congress, I guess the Republicans were trying to get the newest relief package in the United States to include protection for any businesses that open according to the rules of the local state, and full protection against any lawsuit caused by someone getting sick or claiming that they got infected because they went back to your gym or your club. What are your thoughts on this, and what, if anything, have you done about it with your legal situation?
The problem is California. We really only get sued in California for the most part. California is we don't have time to go over the problems with California and some of the crazy lawsuits we've had. Just silly. We have one for a guy that we have a woman's preferred area, and he's suing us because he can't use the women's preferred area, even though we can.
That's it.
Yeah, we have texting ones. You have employees who just sue you for the heck of it, and don't stop. So I hope that they fix some laws as far as lawsuits and employment law and things like that. I mean, some of the very things that they're asking us to do in our clubs could get us sued by the ADA, could get us, taking people's temperatures and things like that is questionable. So I hope they do. And then I hope they fix the PPP problem. So, everybody, all the landlords, everybody thinks this PPP thing is a big bailout for business, and it really doesn't help a business that's shut down. So first of all, they give you, 2.5 months of what your payroll average is. 75% of that has to be spent on payroll, which kind of doesn't really make sense, because if you have workers that can't come to work, you're paying them through a loan that may or may not be forgiven. So if I do use that and pay them, I might have to pay it back anyhow. The government should have just left them on unemployment. The loans should be set up so that when we start business again, then it starts paying payroll for a couple months, and that would actually help me, because then I could use the rest of the revenue that we have. It's going to be short for rent, and utilities, and other things. But to be able to pay employees while we're not open is no advantage whatsoever, and doesn't leave us in any different place. And it also leaves the landlords pissed off because they think that you have all this money that you can pay them. So the economic package for our clubs, and the other one's the EDIL, which is a $10,000 grant, but $10K to a health club is, it's nice, but it doesn't pay for anything.
Do much.
And then if we do any loans on top of that, and we haven't gotten any of those yet, so I don't know that they exist. I haven't talked to anybody that's actually received the $10,000 yet. But at 4.5% interest, why would you want to borrow money to just try to keep a bad location or keep a business in business that might not make it anyhow? So the economic stimulus package is really for us. They've given us a short-term, low-interest loans if we need it for something, but it has not helped us. It's definitely not going to save anybody, and that's why I think a lot of clubs aren't going to make it. They're not set up with how this money is being paid out.
Wouldn't it be great if the politicians that are actually making these laws ever had any experience starting a business, running a business, surviving in business?
Well, I think I want to be a politician, because these guys go in with like a $200,000 net worth and come out, multimillionaires. So
yeah, no kidding.
I saw Adam Sedlak's Mark for governor, so it's starting. Mark Mastro for governor.
Yeah, he'd be a great one. He'd be a great president. I don't think he would want to bother with. I don't know. I'll let Mark answer for himself, but he's too busy.
Curtis, can I go back a little bit, because you're an expert now, and you were when I first met you, on making sure your lease has some key elements in it. Can you give us one or two pieces of advice?
Well, I mean, I'm never going to sign a force majeure clause like what's in these right now. So I think that's going to change for everyone. But there's a lot of little things. I mean, I don't even try to do them anymore. I did in the beginning, and I wasn't an expert when I started, and I'm certainly not now. But we had one lease that we found that they could have, if they wanted to bulldoze our site and put a Walmart in, they could have. And we heard that they were talking to Walmart about doing that. So we would have.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was part of that. Keep going.
We didn't do that one though. Just your rent bumps obviously are important. There's I would say just make sure you hire a good attorney. I'm not going to try to become the expert here. I would make sure you hire a really good attorney, and then check it yourself and read it yourself. There's just too many things that can go wrong with landlords, and when you pay rent and when you don't, and what your bumps look like, and there's just a number of things.
Well, there's a couple of things that we learned in our earlier careers, and later on I was partners with a major real estate player in Canada. And some of the things that used to be in the leases were that if you didn't pay the rent, they could distrain your equipment. They could, they made, not us, but another club we were trying to buy out, they made them pledge their EFT in case of a default.
Yeah.
So, things like that should never be allowed in these leases.
Yeah.
As well as the right to assign.
Yeah, the equipment
to assign.
we have a hard time doing because we can't sign that because we're usually financing it, so they can't. They wouldn't be able to
take it anyway. Then
yeah. Right. So there's just a lot of things that I would make sure that I did it the cheap way. I tried to have my brother-in-law do it. Now Thanksgiving isn't as fun because he was I doubt anybody in my family's watching. You got to make sure you spend the money. And the one thing I will tell you, Mark's always said, make sure you have good lawyers. And I'm sure you've heard that, Eric, 100 times. Make sure you have good lawyers.
Yeah, well, Tony Bakos, we've been through it. He's one of the best in the world and one of Mark's close friends. Yeah. I have one more question, and then we'll wrap it up with some fun stuff. You have clubs all over the States and also now in Europe. And you touched on it a few times throughout this meeting. How do you do it? I mean, first of all, how sensitive our business is. The right person in the right club, it's a phenomenal club. The wrong person in a right club, it's a down club. You're all over the map. You got 60 locations. How do you do it?
I just go back to people. So I would say my biggest challenge in all of it, as far as managing clubs, was Spain. It's a different culture, a different work ethic, a non-commission, non-bonus, kind of very socialist, type business environment. And we would be failing miserably, to be honest with you, if I was in charge of it and really running the day-to-day. Chris Dedicek, who's with Mark in Mexico, he has helped out so much and been so tremendous and just getting things done over there. And that's who I went to. I went to Mark when I started doing Spain. I said, who should I get? And he goes, well, Chris would be your guy, but he's working for me. I'm not giving him up, but he's got this guy, Oscar. And, we hired Oscar, and Oscar has done a phenomenal job. So it's just people, in the United States here. Obviously I have my brother, David, who's very, very talented, and we're a little bit different. So we're actually a good mix. He's a little more planned and probably smarter. He goes a little slower than I do. And then I have Billy McClendon, Joe Kryzik, and Alex Sotolongo, who are, when me and David sat down and started saying, okay, we're going to do our own company, those were the first three names that came up that we wanted these guys. And there was one other that I can't mention now. We got him too, but he's no longer with us. Still friends, but he's not here anymore. But we got those three guys, and, that was the start, because when you have good guys, they have good guys. Mm-hmm. And so, a lot of the people that I'm bringing in under, say, Billy or Alex or Joe or even David, they're people that they know, so they vouch for them, and they end up, not always, but they end up doing, fairly well. So I would just say, and I would say that's probably, I see, Adam Sedlak at UFC hiring, good people, and obviously Mark and Jim Rowley are bringing in, the great people that they've worked with for their different brands. So I think, after you get past 2 or 3 clubs, it all comes down to, who do you have working for you? And are they having fun? Are they excited about what they're doing? Are they talented and are motivated? And are they following, your game plan? And are they free enough to be able to say, hey, I don't think we should do that? So our company really is, like I said, Billy, Alex, Joe, me, and David. We sit in a room, and if I think we should do something, and the 4 of them think we shouldn't, we might not. I'll call Mark and talk to you maybe and see what your thoughts are. But we do what the group thinks we should do. So I think it's just
you mentioned that obviously the cultural difference in Spain, and me as well. I mean, Howie and I, we've opened up all over the world. Do you find the cultural difference here in America between Colorado and California and Idaho?
I'll bet.
Yeah, no, I actually, I'm trying to get my wife to let me move to Boise. So
Yeah.
as soon as my son's done playing football in California, I probably will be in Texas or Idaho. I don't know, one of the two. There's a cultural difference, and I also think there's an age difference. I mean, I think, I hear it. I guess we're all old now. I hear it from the Adams, and I hear it from the other folks about how hard it is to get people that want to hustle and work. And it's instant gratification, and people want to be the CEO in 6 months. And in the last 5 years, I've had actual parents call me about their kids getting promoted, which never would have happened 20 years ago. It's just a different world. And one thing I can give people, we've tried to stick to, really going after military and athletes. You can coach them without crying, and they take criticism a little bit better, and they're not going to cry at work. I guess no crying in fitness, right?
No crying in fitness.
We have another,
So,
Eric, another question from Dan. So maybe we'll just see what that question is, since we're encouraging the audience to ask us some questions. So it says, thank you. Have you noticed the tougher situations in California due to our state restrictions? I think you kind of answered that, but.
Yeah, no, Governor Newsom says there's not going to be any NFL football. Cal State universities aren't going to play sports. He doesn't see gyms and things opening up until maybe September or even October. So yeah, it's crazy. It's really does not make any sense. But like I said, unfortunately, the key part of our business is in California. Most of our clubs are in California. And while I complain about California and the politics and the lawsuits and everything else, and the minimum wage, it is still our well, we got to be open, but it's our most profitable area as well.
Right. My last question for you, Curtis. So you've been everywhere. You've done everything in the fitness industry. What was the single most fun experience that you've had throughout the years?
Oh man, I too many people would unfriend me. I don't remember for that far back either. Most memorable.
Safe answer.
I gotta
Robin's
be
listening.
here.
Robin, your wife's on for
Yeah,
sure.
she might, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of it has been people. Whether it was like being at 24 and getting a guy promoted to be a DM or a VP, or a lot of it's the people, the trips for sure. And those are all a blur. I can't tell you, what Mexico trip or Hawaii trip or Vegas trip or whatever. But, I think 24 Hour Fitness did an unbelievable job of, awards, trophies, trip recognition, Rolex watches. And I think being part of that, and that's what I'm trying to do. And, obviously a much smaller scale than Mark had. But it just was a lot of fun. Working at 24 Hour Fitness, I never thought about getting another job. That was my family. I mean, it's closer than my family. I mean, it was just, it was everything. So, to party with those guys and hang out with those guys and have everybody be successful was a lot of fun. So that was the safe answer. But
good answer, Curtis.
There's some that you don't want me to say because
very politically correct. Very politically correct. From an Idaho guy.
Howard, you have any last questions?
No, I was very excited to hear all the answers that we've heard so far tonight. It's great.
Yeah. Well, Curtis, you're a great guy, great family man. You have a beautiful family.
Thank you, Eric.
Hey, before we get off, can you give me your credit card number? I need to sign you up on something.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. It has a $65 limit.
All right.
But go ahead.
For 3 or 4
thank
more
you so
years.
much, Curtis. I know you're so busy. Thanks for coming on our show. And lots of love to your family. Thank you, Curtis.
All right. I'll see you next week.
Thanks, Curtis.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Well, you see,
he's
been around forever. He's got the answers. And it's like what we said before in the Fitness Guerrillas. We've been through it. We have answers to solve most of everyone's problems. And if we don't have the answer to your problem, we'll get on the phone with Curtis, or Craig from last week. And on Wednesday at 1 o'clock PST time, we have the godfather of the industry, the most successful person in the industry, Mark Mastrov
Right.
coming, and we're going to get more gems from him. But if we need to, we ask our friends, and we'll get the answers for you. So we're proud to have that.
Very interesting. What's very interesting is political take, because California, it's going to be tough. I don't know how they're going to get them to relent and open up the clubs earlier than that. Because if that goes another 4 or 5 months, no one's going to be able to.
No. You see what happened in New Jersey this morning. American people are very strong. They're very proud. They believe in their rights. It's going to be very interesting next little while, but we hope for the best for everybody.
There's no way that California can stay behind.
Howie, in our webinar, in our master class that we're having, that'll be a good topic of how to make sure how to navigate the next 30 to 60 days, and we have so many important things that if you don't open in 30 or 60 days, how to make the money right now, how to get the referrals, how to get the leads while you're still not open.
Right. Well, we'll get into that. We're going to start getting into that more and more on our daily, our 3 times a week chats. So the next one is on Wednesday with Mark Mastrov.
Mark Mastrov Wednesday. Don't miss that one.
Don't miss that one. That's going to be as interesting as this one, hopefully at least. And
then, Howie, on Friday, David King. David King was the one that started the whole thing. He was the CEO of McAllen Duluth, private equity. He took the first experience into the fitness world with Mark Mastrov, purchased 24-Hour Nautilus, which was Mark's company, Family Fitness, which was Ray Wilson. I was a partner in that happily. Turned that together with Mark, put it together, 24-Hour Fitness worldwide, and Mark and David sold for $1.7 billion. It started with those two, and they're going to be on Wednesday and Friday. I'm so excited to have them both here.
Yeah, be very interesting to hear what David King has to say about the entire investment atmosphere right now.
So get your questions ready for Mark and for David. So long from the Fitness Guerrillas. Thank you.
Take it easy, guys. Hope you enjoyed the show. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.